Fyzal Boulifa. Good morning.
Good morning.
How do you feel showing your movie Lynn and Lucy in a festival in Morocco, in the country of your parents?
For me, it's very exciting for the film to be seen by a Moroccan audience. So I'm very intrigued. We've screened once, but we haven't had a Q&A yet. That's going to be today. So I'm very intrigued and curious to see how a Moroccan audience reacts. And I mean, for me personally, it's also just very interesting to be here at the festival because I think it's an interesting point for Moroccan cinema, actually. And I think there's certainly the sense that it's finding some momentum. And I think it's an interesting time to be here.
It's a very beautiful movie, a beautiful duet of friendship, I guess. What was the inspiration behind this movie?
So it was inspired by loosely inspired by a real life event. So there was something that I read in the press in the UK about a young woman who was accused of being involved in the death of her child. And she was eventually acquitted. She was judged to be not guilty, but when she was returned to her community, she was guilty by association, and she was harassed and she killed herself. And it was just when I imagined the best friend of this character that I thought this was an interesting idea for a film, because the position of that best friend seemed like a very interesting way to explore that world. And the idea that the best friend would be caught between the community and her lifelong childhood friend, I thought was interesting.
And you tell the story in a women's point of view, and very precisely, very emotional. How did you put yourself in women's shoes, I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've always found it easier to write female characters. Like I couldn't tell you why necessarily, but what I was interested in doing was making a film which was on one hand sensitive to the details of these women's lives, but also wasn't defined by the fact that they were women, in the sense that for me, it's more a film about power, and it's a film about friendship, and it's a film about betrayal, and it's a film about an environment. Despite it taking place in a women's world, what happens to them is not defined by the fact that they're women, really. And the moral aspect is, I suppose, it's a more basic human idea. It's not. They represent choices that we could all have.
And what about the actresses? Because they are great.
Yes.
How did you find them? Was it like, easy
So
or not?
it was. It wasn't easy. Let me tell you. So I started with the idea that I wanted to work with non-professionals for a few reasons. In England, the acting community is very middle class or upper class even. And it's hard. There's not a huge choice of working class actors, and I think England is a class-obsessed society, and I think when actors would read the script, or they would see where it was set and what type of characters there were, there's this kind of I felt like there was often an implicit judgment already in the performance. So I thought this is one of the reasons that non-professionals felt important, so they could just be. They weren't judging. They weren't. So we tried many different things. So we were street casting. We were meeting women from different parts of the UK that we thought could resemble the place in the script. And eventually we found Roxanne, who responded to an advert in the local paper. And at first I felt like she was probably too like when I first came across her, I thought maybe she wasn't Lynn or she wasn't Lucy. She was somewhere in between, because I think in the script Lynn was very. I mean, she's not a glamorous character, but in the script she was, and I felt like Roxanne had this fierceness that made her more interesting. But I quickly changed my perception of Lynn, and I realised that Roxanne could do it. And then what we found, because Roxanne was so, her performance was so simple and so honest, and so there was such a lack of manners in her performance that when we put her with other people, we found it hard to find a non-professional Lucy, because Lucy has these big emotional scenes. So we thought, okay, maybe Lucy's going to have to be an actress. But when we put her with a lot of actresses, we couldn't believe that they were best friends. And what Roxanne's performance had the effect of highlighting the mannered nature of the other actors. The other actresses just felt fake, because Roxanne was so like straightforward. Until we found Nicola, and Nicola is a professional actress. She's worked with Andrea Arnold, and she's worked with Dominic Savage and some great directors in Britain. But she herself was originally street cast, and I think this is interesting. So she had been through the process that Roxanne was going through, and she wasn't trained, and she's from a working class background. She didn't necessarily have the privilege of like dreaming to be an actress or doing this kind of thing. Acting is something that happened to her. So even though she's like incredibly talented professional, she also, again, she has, I don't think she has a simple way of acting. It's very curated, but it's somehow, the result is a kind of simplicity. And I think when I put them together, I felt there was an understanding. And from that point, it was about, I suppose, the main decision that defined the way that we worked was not to give Roxanne the script. So Roxanne didn't have the script, and we shot chronologically. So Roxanne, as Lynn, was discovering the story. She knew, more or less, the arc. She didn't know the ending, and she didn't know exactly how it was going to happen. So yeah, and this I think helped her performance.
And last question, you made several short movies.
Yes, yeah.
When did you feel it was the time to do the long one?
Honestly, it wasn't. I mean, I can't say it was my decision. I'd been working on feature films for a long time since. So I did my short film here in Morocco, The Curse, in 2012. And after that was in Cannes, of course, people started asking you, okay, so what's your feature idea? So it's kind of since then that I was working on different ideas, and of course, some projects don't work out, and some projects can't get financed, and so I was just working steadily on the various projects until one of them was financed. So that's how it happened. And for me, it was quite long. I spent a long time making short films, probably longer than most filmmakers, but I mean, that's just how it happened. And honestly, even despite all the short films that I made, I'm not sure if you ever feel quite ready, because it's quite an extreme thing to do, to make your first feature film, I think. And it's not an extreme thing, an extreme experience. It's intense, and I think the only way that I don't think there was any way I could have prepared for it. And so now, having done it, I know a lot more than I did before. But I can't say that I felt prepared particularly.
Thank you so much, Fyzal.
No problem. Thank you.